Hello viewers and welcome to another episode of Welcome to Lancer. In today's episode, Brusilov, from Harrison Armory, by Dogfriend68. General Alexei Alexeyevich Brusilov, is a Russian general of the Russian Empire. During World War I, a lot of generals used the totally brilliant human wave tactic, which primarily involved having their soldiers running across a field of death covered by machine gun fire and artillery so they could make the enemies waste ammunitions by shooting at them, and upon expiring from taking lethal dose of lead, became makeshift obstacles against enemy countercharge. Upon witnessing such tactics, Alexei thought,
У этих солдат генерал, урод.
And presented a plan that utilized a newly developed tactic to take some pressure off Verdun. This plan is later called Brusilov's offensive for how good it went, capturing a total of 200,000 prisoners in less than 3 days by creating weak points in enemy trenches and using it to its maximum advantage. In fact, this tactic was so ahead of its time because everyone else is fucking stupid. The German copied it later in the war, turned it into blitzkrieg in World War II, and eventually evolved into a key component of modern armored warfare. Unfortunately, a certain blunder caused by General Alexei Avert in the offensive turned a lot of Russian soldiers into poppy field fertilizer, which became another nail in the coffin for the Russia Empire in the following year, as they have not one, but 2 revolutions in the same year. Both times, Alexei supported the revolutionaries, even aided the Bolsheviks in the early formation of the Red Army to ensure that Russia could finally win the war. Named after the general, Brusilov is a fighter made to fight in even the worst of terrain, and make things even worse for the enemies. Looking at its stat, Brusilov is a standard-sized mech with 1 armor, good save target, and decent sensor range. It has excellent health, but a rather low repair cap. Its speed is decent, with good evasion, e-defense, base system points, and excellent heat cap. Onto its traits, it has 3 of them. First, Mantle of Razors. Brusilov gains 1 armor when standing on dangerous terrain or in danger zone, 2 armor when in both. This does not go over the 4 armor limit. Second, Self-Immolate. When in danger zone and taking heat, Brusilov may instead choose to take the same amount of AP energy damage. Finally, Unstable System. When Brusilov is destroyed, it explodes at the end of your turn. With these traits, Brusilov can take advantage of terrible terrain and take tremendous amounts of heat with almost no problem, but it still came with the problem, or benefit to some, of being maybe 10% manticore. As for its weapon mounts, it has 2, 1 heavy and 1 main. Weight isn't these supposed to be placed opposite of onto its core system. Brusilov can use its blink space shredders for its passive, Gruber-Pina spatial gash. Upon activation with a quick action and 1 heat, you can create a size 1 space of dangerous terrain on a free space within range 3 and line of sight for once per round. Instead of a check, any character that ended their turn or stepped on it for the first time in a round must pass an engineering save to not get bitten for 3 AP energy damage. You can only create a maximum of 3 of these spaces at a time, making a new one will just destroy the oldest one. As for its core power, Brusilov can use its blink space shredders to activate Reality Unspoiler. Upon activation with a quick action, you can now create 8 of those dangerous spaces at max, and place 2 of them at once with the passive. Also, when you create these spaces, you can now draw range from any existing Eye of Terror, as well as your mech. Also, your mech no longer takes damage from all these reality ripples. To put it shortly, blink space shredders can make any existing environment a bad news for the enemies, and the core power, Reality Unspoiler, make things even worse for them and better for you. However, allies are not safe from these effects either, so better put them somewhere the enemy can't use to their advantages. As for the rest of its license, you get Python final_final.xc and Impossible Trident in the first section. Python final_final.xc.
So old man, I ask you, how could we sell land on something that did not worship those who held it?
It's an invasion upgrade that gives you 2 additional options. First, FATS_out, make your target teleports by 1d3 plus 1 spaces in a direction of your choice, and is also impaired until the end of their next turn. Second, heat//sink, cause you to take 1d3 AP energy damage, and make both you and your target's heat to average out. You can only use this option once per round. Overall, Python final_final.xc can move your target around and switch your heat in or out, pretty flexible. Impossible Trident.
The Empire has fashioned us into weapons. Now, we wield ourselves against it.
Okay damage, short threat, costs 1 systems point, but you can throw it up to 3 spaces far. When you throw the trident at an empty space or destroyed someone with it, it stays in place and electrifies the space around it. Any character that steps into the space or start their turn within it must pass an agility save or get zapped for 2 energy damage. This space lasts until you take the trident back. Also, if you got any talent or system that automatically retrieves thrown weapon, you can opt not to. A flexible weapon for both making a location inhospitable or just terminating a group of enemies, and after all that, it's still a useful stabby stick. In the second section, aside from Brusilov frame itself, you get Hyper-Object Armor and Hans Basilisk. Hyper-Object Armor.
With
a quick action, you gain Overshield 6. When you still have this Overshield, you are slowed but all your movements count as teleport. You may also purge the armor as a protocol, taking away the Overshield and benefits. A powerful protective limited systems that also grants you some mobility. Hans Basilisk.
Attempts to both stem the spread of the Thorn in the Side manifesto or the Brusilov print data have ultimately only been partial.
With a quick tech action, pick a target within your sensor range. On hit, whenever the target passes a check or save, they take +1 difficulty on the next check or save they make, and this can increase all the way up to +3 difficulty. When they finally fail a save, the effect clears up. Only one target can suffer from this effect at a time. Very useful in making sure your enemy will fail. In the final section, you get Stutterer and Morgana class NHP. Stutterer.
The iconography of a body being pierced by a triangle or 3 arrows has become synonymous with not just discontent in the purview, but true revolutionary thought.
Decent damage, short range, decent threat, costs 2 heat to fire. And on a critical hit, the first time your target has to pass a save before the end of their next turn, they have to roll twice and pick the lowest result instead. Somewhat similar to Hans Basilisk in how it makes your enemy fail, but it's also a gun. And finally, Morgana class NHP.
We will give you 4 silvers of life. Listen carefully.
I don't want to make these anymore.
I've never met someone else like me.
She's isn't Harrison property.
Take me to Tiano.
Do not use this system. It promotes thought and becoming of a legionnaire.
With a quick tech action, pick a target in your sensor range that must now pass a system save. Otherwise, until the end of their next turn, the target gets distorted yet perfect projections of themselves around them in a burst 1 area. In the burst 1 area, the target counts as standing within those spaces and could in fact trigger mine, drone, and other non-tech attack systems that used sensor range with these ghastly copies. Also, having the projections standing on difficult or dangerous terrain make the target counts as standing on them too. The only thing that isn't affected by the projections are attacks, cover, and obstruction, as the projections aren't exactly solid, so just treat these as normal. This also means that the target cannot attack from the projections, and other characters cannot attack the target by attacking the projections either. Overall, Morgana quite literally makes your enemy too dummy thick to get past just about any dangers on the field except actual obstacles. Extremely useful for any controllers. As a final conclusion, Brusilov is a warzone fighter that can make the terrain hellish for its opponents and take full advantages of the mess it creates. Its license is full of tools designed to make the enemies mess up even more, or create even more chaos on the battlefield. Overall, excellent to those that seek to control the battlefield for themselves while still being a highly effective combatant. Just remind yourself that Brusilov might make a mess for its allies too.